So welcome to today's class. This is the final session of the 6-week overview of the Path to Enlightenment, which we started again after, I think, 3 years. So we started it again this year. So this week we are going to look at different ways to gather our energy as a student of the Path to Enlightenment on our journey, and there are so many different tools offered throughout the book, but these are some of the best to create a strong foundation for this precious path. So this path is generally completed over many lifetimes, but there are many ways to firstly make the ascent on the path safer and to make the journey secure, and so we don't drop back at any point. And also there are ways to pick up speed. So it's kind of what we want to do is to make this journey towards an enlightened or awakened state where we're of most benefit to ourselves and most benefit to others as quickly as possible. So by knowing the Dharma and practicing meditation regularly, we get to learn all about our mind and the quality of our mind and insights into our mind and also our actions which follow. So this is a tremendous quality, knowing the Dharma and knowing meditation and beginning to lift what is known as the confusion of being a human being. It's probably one of, probably the actual biggest thing that human beings as a form of being actually have to face is confusion. As His Holiness the Dalai Lama so wittingly explained, what most surprised him about his experience of humans. Man, he said, because he sacrifices his health, and I don't think he was talking about man, he was talking about people in general. People, because he sacrifices his health in order to make money, then he sacrifices money to recuperate his health, and then he is so anxious about the future that he does not enjoy the present. The result being that he does not live in the present or the future. He lives as if he is never going to die and then dies having never really lived. So the foremost feature of humans is confusion and lack of clarity, and that's what His Holiness is highlighting in that quite witty statement. So Geshe explains on page 83 how Dharma and meditation can really help clear up this confusion. We're able to see which thoughts and actions are skillful and which are unskillful. And we're able to see easily and clearly what are more helpful and less helpful approaches and which are right and wrong within a Dharma framework. So we can evaluate our level of understanding and our own level of suffering and delusion and negative minds. So we learn those skills to be able to do that, and that gives us the foundation and the basis to be able to switch that around. So the Dharma is likened to being a mirror. As is said in Ashvaghosha's life stories, when I see myself clearly in the Dharma mirror, the form of my evil attitudes, I feel immensely distressed, and then I orient myself to the Dharma. So we can use our meditation as an opportunity to observe what is going on in our mind. And if we have times when we feel like completely overwhelmed by a sea of negative thoughts, then we can use this book, this amazing reference book, to find the antidote and clean up the sea of negative thoughts that we're experiencing. So Geshe says if our mind is dirty, which means negative thoughts, lots and lots of negative thoughts arising, we can't get positive, clean it up. Wash it, he says. So meditation is quite often called mental hygiene these days. And I know if something happens and I haven't done my morning practice, there seems to be a little bit of an edge, can be a little bit of an edge to my own mind. So it seems quite subtle. It's probably not so subtle, it's probably quite significant, but it's really wonderful to be able to have this kind of mental hygiene approach. So what a gift to have a tool that cleans up the mind, keeps us fresh and as possible as we possibly can be. Of course, circumstances are going to arise that we will get tripped up, and our usual habit patterns are triggered at these times. But at that point, we can, if we have a good understanding of this book and the various ways to address those issues, then we can take that as an opportunity to purify and to remove those negativities. Take a look in the Dharma mirror, not to be angry with ourselves, that's not necessary, but just to take a good look in the Dharma mirror and say, okay, what am I going to do to actually shift that mind and change that habit pattern and pick ourselves up from that point in time and start again. So we can look at the situation, for example, if something has triggered us or a circumstance has arisen or we've woken up in a particularly difficult mood, we can actually use that itself in a very positive sense by saying that here is an opportunity to see aspects of our mind that we actually haven't seen before. So here's the essence, the opportunity to see them clearly and then set about removing them. And we can regard in that way that every day is a new day, a new dawn, so to speak. So we begin the session with some prayers. That's just a little introduction. And we'll begin with some prayers. First, I wanted to start with some light offerings that have been made. So the first of all is there's been a series of light offerings for Mr. John Cook, who's the father of Rosie McHugh. And we'd like to make a light offering from the Tibetan Buddhist Society for his beneficial birth, and that both his birth is very fortuitous and that he has the opportunity to meet very, very good conditions in his next life. And we also make the offering for the benefit and well-being of the Cook and McHugh families and all the associated relatives. So also another light offering. This one is for, and then we'll just stop for a minute or two to think about both of these, for both John Cook. But this is also a light offering for all the people who are experiencing COVID throughout the world. And also especially thinking at this time of the people who are in such dire situation in both India and Brazil and other countries that are facing a particularly terrible time where there's emerging humanitarian crises. So if we could just spend a couple of minutes reflecting on both the well-being of John Cook and his family and also all of the people who are experiencing such difficulties and sadness and overwhelmingly poor situations in different parts of the world, especially India and Brazil and any other countries that are in those categories. Send our best wishes that all of the circumstances are relieved as soon as possible. Situation becomes much more full of good health. The ending of the pandemic. closure of all the suffering, peace, happiness, and good conditions. Quickly, quickly. So then we'll say the regular prayers that we start the session. So we begin with praise to Shakyamuni Buddha. We'll do that in English, and then the remaining prayers on page 19 we'll do in Tibetan and English. So teacher, Bhagawan, Tathagata, Arhat, perfectly pure and complete Buddha, all-knowing, having poise, Sagata, apprehender of the world, navigator of beings to be subdued, incomparable, teacher of gods and humans, to the Buddha, the Bhagawan, the glorious conqueror Shakyamuni, we prostrate, make offerings and go for refuge. In the refuge and bodhicitta prayer. Sangichodang zokichonam la jang chubadudane gyab sushi dagi jinzogi pezonam chi drola panchi sange drupajo. To the Buddha, Dharma and Sangha, I go for refuge until becoming enlightened. Through the merit of my generosity and so on, may I achieve Buddhahood to benefit all beings. To the Buddha, the Dharma and Sangha, I go for refuge until becoming enlightened. Through the merit of my generosity and so on, may I achieve Buddhahood to benefit all beings. In the short mandala offering. Saji poki jujin beto tram rirab ling jinide gyam pari sangye jindu mingte ulvaji drukun nam dag jinla chopajo. This ground anointed with perfume and strewn with flowers, Mount Meru, the four continents, adorned with sun and moon, imagined as a Buddha land and offered thus, may all beings enjoy such pure lands. Then we turn to the prayer of the lineage gurus, which we'll do in English. Body born from 1,000,000 magnificent, excellent virtues, speech fulfilling the hopes of infinite beings, a mind that sees all objects of knowledge precisely. I bow my head to the chief among the Shakyas, supreme sons of the incomparable teacher, carrying the load of all the conqueror's deeds, by their emanations appearing in countless realms. I prostrate to Maitreya and Manjushri. The mother of conquerors is difficult to fathom. The precise thought is in commentaries written by Jambudvipa's ornaments, Nagarjuna and Asanga. I prostrate at the feet of those most renowned in the three realms. From these two great chariots come the excellent lineages of the paths of profound view and vast deeds, their essential points gathered thoroughly and without fault. Prostration to the lamp holding this treasury of instruction, giving explanation through compassion, by seeing precisely and completely the essential points of all paths of Sutra and Tantra, holder of the Conqueror's entire holy Dhamma, prostrations to the glorious Loden Dragpa, I, seeing all the infinite teachings, supreme way of crossing for those entering the journey to liberation, moved by compassion to deed skilled in method, prostrations to the spiritual masters who make everything clear. Then the Great Treasury of Excellence on page 27, the Prayer of the Path to Enlightenment. The kind Master is the basis of all qualities, and proper alliance is the root of the path. By seeing this excellence and through much striving, bestow blessings to be devoted with great respect. This gentle support of freedom, obtained this one time, is most difficult to achieve. Knowing its great value gives rise to a mind seizing its essence constantly day and night. Bestow blessings to generate this continuum unceasingly. It is like a bubble in water, this constant moving body and life. Thus remember the swift collapse of death. Beyond death, like body and shadow, white and black karmic results follow after. By gaining firm certainty in this, the massive faults, subtle and very subtle, are abandoned, and the accomplishment of all virtuous collections completed. Bestow blessings to ever retain conscientiousness. The qualities of samsara unfit to be trusted, the door to all suffering. Do not be content with these enjoyments. By knowing its defects, bestow blessings to develop a great aspiration for the bliss of liberation. By that pure thought, great conscientiousness is drawn forth, and mindfulness and awareness of the individual liberation, the root of the teachings. Bestow blessings to make this the essential practice. Just as I myself have fallen into samsara's ocean, all living beings as mother are also like that. By seeing the responsibility for the liberation of beings, bestow blessings to be trained in supreme bodhicitta. However, by merely generating the mind, if not acquainted with the three aspects of ethics, enlightenment will not be attained. By seeing this excellence, bestow blessings to train with strong effort in the vows of conqueror sons, pacifying distraction toward perverse objects by way of proper analysis of the perfect meaning. Bestow blessings to swiftly and continuously generate the path related to the union of calm abiding and special insight. Thus, becoming a vessel trained in the common paths, enter the Vajrayana, supreme evolution of all vehicles. Bestow blessings to engage the easy path itself, that sacred way of crossing for fortunate beings. The base of practice for the two aspects of attainment is when guarding the pure vows of commitment is found to be genuine and certain. Bestow blessings to protect them even at risk of life. And by understanding properly the important points, which are the essence of the two stages of the Tantra classes, bestow blessings to practice according to these holy teachings with continuous effort in the Supreme Four-Session Yoga. Like that, may the spiritual friend revealing the gentle path and the friends of proper practice stand firm. Bestow blessings to quickly pacify the masses of outer and inner hindrances. In all rebirths may I never be parted from perfect gurus and the enjoyment of the glorious Dhamma. By utterly completing all qualities, paths and grounds, may I quickly achieve the state of Vajradhara. So then we'll begin with some stabilisation meditation. So if we first get into a good posture and get comfortable, sitting on a chair is fine, or if you can have a nice straight back. Otherwise we might get sleepy. So a straight back is the essence of a good meditation practice. If you're sitting on the floor, then there's no need to attempt a lotus position. Sitting cross legs in a comfortable position is fine. The main thing is to try and keep the back straight. So we take a deep breath and we raise our shoulders and let them relax with a bit of a sigh, and so we let the body soften and relax. So we either close our eyes fully, just gently, or we leave them slightly open if we are able to comfortably, which helps to leave and let some light in. And then we can rest the tongue behind the front teeth, which prevents the build-up of saliva. So we rest our hands in our lap, the right on the top of the other on the left, and the tips of the thumbs are touching. So the object of our meditation is the breath, and we find the most comfortable place for ourselves to do that. Some prefer to watch the breath travelling up and down the nostrils, others prefer to focus on the diaphragm, rising and falling of the diaphragm, or some on the upper chest, so whichever is most comfortable for you. And we're just going to give all of our attention at the moment to stabilising our mind and to resting our attention on the breath. So everything else that we've been doing today or during the week or planning for the next week or planning for tonight can just be put on hold for this very short time, this very precious time that we have in this beautiful temple. Just focus our mind on the movement of the breath, either up and down or in and out as the preference takes us. So a little tiny bit of our mind is just watching out for any distractions that our mind might have, any attention shifting, and then we just gently bring the mind back to the breath. So we count, if we want to, we can count our breath going in and out as one. That helps us focus. If we get up to 10, then we just start again. Or if our concentration slips, we just start again. So many benefits of bringing our mind into the present, settling the mind, building our concentration, letting go of everything else. Training our mind to find a place of peace and stability. Much better ability to manage the traffic. The traffic being our thoughts, our endless chatter of thoughts. We create this spaciousness, this ability to manage the chatter, then we'll be able to decide what we think about. Now we're just going to change our object of concentration and just focus on the out-breath. And we're going to visualise that as we breathe out, anything negative, all our problems, any unhappiness, any suffering, any illness, anything that's not so comfortable, any small irritation or frustration, disappears in the form of black light or black smoke, whichever we prefer. Just focusing our concentration on the out-breath. Black light or the black smoke is everything that we don't want. Any sickness or causes of sickness, causes of short life, any worries, anxiety, anger, agitation, stress, all visualised as black smoke or black light, disappearing out of our system, out of our body in the form of black light or black smoke. Letting go. Any bad memories, any resentment, any times we've failed, any feelings of limitation, any lack of confidence, disappearing. And our bodies and our channels and our chakras become clearer and clearer. As everything we don't want disappears. Completely removing all of these impurities and negativities. Next we turn our concentration to the in-breath. And every time we breathe in, we imagine beautiful, clear, white light from right across the universe. It's filling all our chakras and channels right through our body, completely filled with this beautiful, extraordinary white light. And the white light represents all that is useful, all that is beneficial, peace and love and compassion and kindness and generosity and concentration and wisdom and happiness, completely filling every part of our mind and body. Beautiful, clear white light. Imagine our body is no longer solid and heavy and prone to disease. It's very light-natured and radiant. And then we can imagine that this brilliant white light extends out from our heart and touches our family and our friends, right across the world to all living beings. This beautiful, brilliant white light. They also experience all the qualities of happiness and love, good conditions, good health, peace, pleasure, and positive states of mind such as patience and generosity ethics, joyous effort, love and wisdom? Is they're touched by this beautiful white light. So when you're ready, then release your concentration. So here we are, building energy and momentum for our Dharma practice. We might think at a very deep and subtle level, that's all fine, but the teachers are actually talking about somebody else, not me. So I've got so many hindrances and obstructions. I'm shy, I'm introspective, I'm so out there, and I need lots of stimulation. And I've got this issue and that issue. So it's not really me, this class. I love listening to the Dharma, I enjoy listening to the Dharma, but this is not really quite possible for me. So that's just a conversation that we might actually like to have with ourselves, and it's mainly a lifetime of habit, that kind of conversation that we have with ourselves. It's partly an excuse, it's partly a lack of confidence, and a kind of mental laziness as well. So we need to kind of look to others for inspiration in this situation. So the Path to Enlightenment talks about a very ancient story. The story of Angulimala is memorable for what can be achieved in one lifetime. Now he got himself into all sorts of trouble by listening to a university lecturer who advised him that it would be a very good idea and very useful for him to kill 1,000 people. So he actually then set about doing this, and as a way of showing that he'd done that, he then cut off their little finger and he kept the little finger. So one day after he'd killed 999 people, he came across the Buddha, who through very skillful methods convinced him that this was really not a good way to go, and that in fact he could purify this negative karma, and he gave him instructions on how he might actually do that. So Angulimala was not an unintelligent person, so he recognised that this was making sense, so he then changed his ways dramatically, decided to practice the Dharma. And in fact, with the skill of the Buddha's teachings, he was able to clearly see the faults that he had made, or the faults, and had great sincere regret for his actions, and was able to, within one lifetime, which is a very amazing thing to do, he was able to purify his negative actions, and he went on to become what is known as a foe destroyer, which is somebody who defeats all of their negative minds, also known as an arhat. So this is a really extreme example of taking a really good look into the Dharma mirror and realising this is a really negative way to go. So in more modern times, there's lots and lots of really inspiring people who have lifted themselves from a life, in the depths and the dank of a kind of a metaphorical swamp, and end up doing incredibly inspiring work. So one of the ones, this person may or may not be a Dharma practitioner that we know of, but the story is nevertheless breathtaking. So I particularly like this story, and this is Tanya Plibersek's husband. And his name is Michael Coates Trotz, and he was in his youth a drug smuggler and also a heroin addict. And he lost his way really badly when his father died of cancer when he was 11 years old. So he got into the wrong crowd and went very, very south as a result of that, and he received a very heavy jail term for his crimes. But he paroled early for good behaviour, and then had obviously very clearly seen the error of his ways and went on to do studies. And he lifted himself and has been the head of, at various times, not uncontroversially as one might imagine, but at various times he's been the head now of 3 New South Wales government departments, including community services, education, and he's currently the head of the Department of Communities and Justice, and clearly probably in charge of, I'm not sure about this, but probably in charge of the very jail where he was incarcerated. So the point of the story is that he's gone on to actually help millions and millions of people, and is known for his wisdom and his ability to develop good policy, and at the same time he's a supportive partner to the deputy opposition leader Tanya Plibersek and their children. So they're very extreme stories, and we can think about some stories that we might like as well of people who've turned their lives around. So they've made massive changes in a short space of time, and we too can work quickly to remove our negative karma if we have got some of gross things that we'd like to remove about ourselves. So yeah, we can also look ourselves at people that might inspire us and give us that kind of energy, and give us that kind of energy for the Dharma, to know that that it is really possible to lift one's mind from quite a negative space to a very positive space quite quickly if one adopts and accelerates that journey. So on this topic, Geshe quotes a teacher whose name, or a great person from past times, whose name was Arya Deva, and he was a disciple of Nagarjuna and author of a number of important Mahayana Madhyamika Buddhist texts looking at the sort of philosophy of emptiness, understanding emptiness. So Arya Deva was strongly associated with the great Nalanda monastery in India, which is holiness the Dalai Lama continuously describes as having a very important impact on and influence on Tibetan Buddhism. So Geshe explains in the Path to Enlightenment, based on Arya Deva's advice, that the students or disciple must have 5 qualities. So Geshe says that if our attitudes are defective, it will prevent us from seeing the qualities of a guru or the guru's representative, and we have the guru's representative in this book for those of us who have not met Geshe and at the moment don't necessarily have a root teacher available to go and check things with, which applies to many of us in this room. So there are more, these are special in more ways than one because they assist us in training our mind. They're good for building our energy, these qualities, but they're also really important, these 5 qualities, in helping us to identify a teacher when the right time comes, when we have the opportunity to have a great teacher. Then these qualities of the mind are really, really important, Geshe explains. So the first of them is honesty, and the meaning of honesty here is to be unbiased. So not favouring friends while harbouring anger towards people that we have difficulties with, which you might classically call enemies, and nor having a very uncaring indifference towards strangers. So the students also advised in this case not to be biased on our view of different religions, to be very respectful towards other religions as well. So that all comes under the category of honesty. So His Holiness, for example, and Geshe did the same, continuously encourages respect and dialogue with other main religions and philosophies, and the value of other faiths, and to have dialogue with other faith leaders. So that's the first of the qualities. The second is to have discriminating wisdom. So that is the ability to be able to perceive the value of the teachings and what is the right path as opposed to the wrong path. And that is where you need a certain amount of common sense and intelligence to be able to discern the logic of the path and to make those kind of judgments. Does this make sense or not? Make sure that we ask the right questions and analyse the topics and establish their legitimacy compared to a wrong teaching, compared to a teaching that's faulty and not based on good logic. So the third quality is to be prepared to make effort, a strong energy and enthusiasm and aspiration towards the Dharma teachings is really important for being a good student. So if we might listen and understand and go to classes, but if we continue to make the same mistakes over and over and we don't really want to apply or make the effort to actually apply what we've learned, then this is somewhat futile. So the fourth one is to maintain respect for both the teacher and the teachings, and they both have the potential to help us enormously if we are prepared to listen and learn. And of course, the more respect we have for the teacher and the teachings, then it will be easier. It'll be easier. So this is the fourth of the qualities that we want to cultivate. And we talked extensively last week, for those of us here, about the importance of listening with concentration and mindfulness, and that's the fifth of the qualities for a student that will help with developing our enthusiasm and energy. So Geshe is advising that it's good for us to check those qualities to see if we have them, and then if we do have them, that's great, we can rejoice and be really happy about that. But if we don't have any of those qualities, then to set about developing those qualities to accelerate the outcomes, if that's what we're interested in doing, if we're wanting to accelerate the outcomes of our Dharma practice. 4 of these minds are minds to be cultivated, and one of them is to be abandoned, a mind to be abandoned, which is a mind that is biased. If we are biased towards our enemy or against our enemies and towards our friends and against our enemies or people we don't like particularly or strangers, then that is a mind that is to be abandoned. So the great teacher and meditator Tsongkhapa, who was wrote the seminal Path to Enlightenment in Tibetan a long time ago, over 600 years ago. He said that having these 5 qualities is also very important in helping us at the right time to recognise the teacher, the root guru, the main teacher. So, this is one life, and then there'll be another life. So to have these 5 qualities, if we want to encounter our teacher in the next life, then it is very useful for us to make sure that we have these 5 qualities. So when we meet this teacher, we'll want to rely on the teacher. So if you're interested in this topic, there's a little bit more explanation on page 98. So then we can go further in building our Dharma energy and momentum and devote ourselves to these teachings by thought. And the reason for this is not to become like a serf, but it's really all about mind training. So this is really about, getting our mind in the best position that we possibly can, and all the many benefits that we've talked about in the last few weeks about why this is so useful to do that. So the role of the teacher is very important in Tibetan Buddhism, and for those of us yet to directly meet our guru in this life, Geshe has said that this book is the representative, that while he is not here, this book and his other books will be the representative. So we all hope and pray that we get to meet our teacher again, in the not too distant future. But now is a perfect time to prepare for that, so that we're in a really good position when that happens. I don't have that karma right now, most of us, to have our main teacher here. But it's an incredibly good opportunity to gain maximum benefit from that opportunity. Is right now to develop a series of minds. So Geshe advises that there's a series of minds that we can work to develop, and these are kind of, quite often in Tibetan Buddhism they use a lot of visual tools that helps us to, more easily access the teachings. So these next group of methods is a series of visual tools to help us to remember these minds that we would like to train ourselves in. So the first of these is to be like a dutiful son or daughter, and that's doing as the teacher, the main teacher, asks. So before we hand over this kind of responsibility to another person, it is imperative that we check and that we have the best possible teacher. So I myself was very wary on this count. Maybe my 5 qualities that I explained a little while ago were quite low or limited, or I was naturally cautious. So either way, I was not really what I would call a natural guru adopter. Far from it, having rejected early opportunities to take a guru. And even when I met Geshe, I was quite hesitant. So Geshe Loden was very patient and kind with all of that. He not only withstood that kind of scepticism, but he turned out to be the most extraordinary person that I ever met, and I think other people within our community would say a similar thing. Most extraordinary person I've ever met or could even imagine. And through my work circumstances, I've met a lot of different people, so that is a lot of quite high people, so that's a reasonable statement. So we can look at this verse from Maitreya's ornament for the Mahayana Sutras to help us go through that process of assessing our teacher when we get that opportunity, when we next get that opportunity. And the Maitreya's ornament for the Mahayana Sutras advises that we should rely on a guru who is controlled, pacified, completely pacified, who has more knowledge than you, perseverance, a wealth of scriptural knowledge, realization of suchness, is skilled in teaching, has love, and has abandoned in being discouraged from teaching. So if you want to have a deeper read of all those qualities, there's a little bit more explained on page 95. Most of them are reasonably self-explanatory. If we can't find a teacher like this, we can look for a guru who has at least 5 of these. So we can look for a teacher who has ethics, concentration, wisdom, the wisdom perceiving emptiness, and compassion. That's still, a very evolved person to even have those 5. So if we can't find a teacher with a 5, then the 3, Geshe advises the 3, more qualities than faults, more concern for others than him or herself, and more interest in future lives and this life. So this is how we are looking at becoming a dutiful son or a dutiful daughter, and the kind of person that we might hand over that kind of responsibility to. So that explains that. So that's a way that we train our mind in becoming that dutiful son or dutiful daughter. So going back to our list of ways that we can train the mind through imagination and thinking, through a combination of imagination and thinking and meditation. The second is having a mind like a Vajra. So a Vajra is a mystical implement. It's used to symbolise compassion and method that is said to be indestructible. And here we ensure that our commitment to the teacher as represented is never broken, especially from the influence of people with poor motivation or intention. So we have a mind like a Vajra. My apologies, I should have brought a Vajra along, but it's a small implement that's about so long with different little spokes on either end, and it sort of symbolises compassion and method. So we want to have a mind that is very strong and powerful, that has got method or a compassion and is said to be indestructible. So we want a mind that's indestructible. Then the third is having a mind like the earth. And so a mind like the earth is going to be able to withstand holding enormous numbers of aspects and so much burden. The earth holds great mountains, the earth holds great trees, it holds cities. And so we carry great responsibility, and we do what the teacher or the teacher's representative in this case would ask. So examples would be looking after the teacher's centre or studying as he advises, or if he is here in person, then undertaking any of the tasks that he asks. And some of the great practitioners, the stories of Tilopa and Naropa, Milarepa, Mapa, they're renowned for what they did for their teachers as a method of training the mind, to actually train the mind to be very strong like the earth and learning to listen. So the fourth mind that we can visualise is to have a mind like a mountain. So we think of all the qualities of the mountain, and the mountain is very stable, and it is able to be able to withstand any difficulties encountered in doing as we're asked to do or what might be expected. Mountain withstands all types of climates, potentially a lot of heat in the summer and a lot of cold and snow in the winter. So we visualise our mind becoming stable, very stable and firm, like a mountain. So the fifth of these is having a mind like a servant, so that regardless of the loneliness of the task, we're happy to do it, and if that arises for us, then cleaning the toilet if that comes up. So we're happy to do whatever it takes and have a mind like a servant and be very humble and have humility in our Dharma practice. So then having a mind like a cleaner. With this approach, we're prepared to do whatever is necessary without any pride or thinking, I am too important to do this or that sort of thing. Sometimes we might think that the teacher or the teacher's instructions are a little bit much or they're too simple, and we can't benefit really from these teachings. So if we have the affliction of pride, if we've got too much pride, so we need to have a very humble approach to these teachings, like a cleaner might in dealing with their employer. So there's a beautiful quote from Geshe Chingawa, who says, "In the summer, observe which becomes greener, the high tops of the mountains or the moist valleys resting below." So Geshe advises in the path that it is the humble mind that flourishes in the Dharma. So to have a very humble, not to say, I've done this retreat, I've done that retreat, I've done all the study, I'm so knowledgeable. It's not really considered the right approach. So the next of the visualizations that we can have is to see our mind as like a vehicle. And that is like a vehicle that is able to carry the heaviest of loads, is able to carry an enormous load, as if it was as light as a feather, and it has got the horsepower to carry whatever is necessary to reach this awakened state. So we can look to examples and inspiration from somebody like Milarepa, who was asked by his teacher to do all these seemingly unnecessary tasks, and he just did it because it was mind training. His teacher Lotsawa Mapa was training his mind because Milarepa had been through many, many difficulties and had got himself into a difficult place. So Mapa foresaw that it was very useful for Milarepa to do this training, this mind training around having a mind like a vehicle. And so then when Milarepa was told by Mapa to go and spend the rest of his life in a cave, well, that's what he did. Off he went and ate very, very humble food, green nettles apparently, green nettle soup. So that's some vehicle and some load that he carried through the rest of his life and eventually became an enlightened being. So the next is to have, imagery is to have a mind like a dog. So Geshe says that even if we beat or abuse a pet dog, any of you who've got dogs will know that the dog will still want to have a pat and will still come running whenever wagging his tail to his friend. So this is not relevant at the moment, but a scolding from the teacher in Tibetan Buddhism can be regarded as a blessing. So the teacher is being wrathful, or the teacher can be wrathful to help remove our negativities and hindrances. So in that case, if that ever came to pass, then we would have a mind like a dog. So the path includes another great story about a Geshe Lasso, who, whenever he encountered his teacher Tolong, he was roughly reprimanded by Tolong. A younger student of the same teacher complained one day to Geshe Lasso about the persistent criticism by the teacher, and Geshe Lasso, who was obviously a good practitioner, said to the younger student, "Did that seem like a rebuke to you? To me, it feels like I've been received a great blessing." So according to Geshe Loden, this type of remonstration from the teacher can purify masses of negative karma. In fact, I witnessed a situation, I don't know whether the karma was purified or not, but I did witness a situation where Geshe at one point was telling off a couple of very senior students very loudly. It was like a shouting, and a few of us were standing towards the back very quietly. He turned on his heels away from the people that he was telling off and turned around to us and had this biggest smile on his face. So it was totally managed and orchestrated situation specifically for those students. There was obviously some benefit to them because there was no anger or anything like that, even though it sounded very loud and very uncomfortable to those of us who were listening in the background, and I'm sure very uncomfortable for those who were in trouble for whatever they were in trouble for. But that was an example of what might happen in that kind of situation. So the ninth of these visualised minds is to have a mind like a ship, and in this case, the ship is the ocean liners travelling around the world, carrying massive loads, continuously moving. So I think the point here is to maintain consistency and to carry whatever that load is continuously. So these are 9 minds that we can meditate on to increase the energy of our spiritual journey. That will just then spontaneously, if we meditate on these 9 minds, then we will build up this energy to spontaneously follow our Dharma practice. So there's another tool that's taught in Tibetan Buddhism, and that is the faith of perceiving our teacher as a Buddha, and that can be very useful. So Geshe describes it as the foundation of all realizations, and it's not so easily, and I think Pam might talk about this a little bit more in future classes. So similar to challenges of, it's quite a big topic because it's similar to the challenge. One of the teachings is that we see all living beings as our mother, and we wish to repay the kindness. Now that's a very profound practice. It's got lots and lots of different aspects to it, and learning to see our teacher as the Buddha himself is also a learned skill. It's not something that necessarily will come automatically, but incredibly beneficial. So Buddha himself said in the Vajrapani Initiation Tantra, as we regard a Buddha, so we should regard our teacher, our guru. If we regard our teacher as a Buddha, whether that person is or not a Buddha, the point is receiving the blessings. So you're actually receiving blessings because of the way your mind is reflecting at that point. You're reflecting, and our mind has got to the point where it's able to actually see those qualities within our teacher. So our own negative karma and destructive tendencies will create the tendency to potentially see faults in others, in our teacher. This is very different to the careful checking that we need to do on the qualities of the teacher before we accept him or her as our teacher. That's essential. This is a practical training step. So it's actually a method, it's a tool to help develop our mind. So it's how we see that teacher on a day-to-day basis. So if we focus on his or her good qualities and fill our mind with these thoughts, our tendency to see faults will be overcome, and Geshe uses this phrase, as the sun outshines the moon. So at the beginning, when we first adopt a teacher, we'll probably just, having done our checking, then move on to sort of the next phase, and we probably just see them as an ordinary being. But as we progress through development, we can learn to see more and more good qualities in our teacher, and eventually we're able to, excuse me, through this mind training, we're able to perceive all phenomena eventually in pure aspect. So this is really a method to train our mind to see things in pure aspect. And so what we apprehend depends on our karma. So good appearances arise from positive karma, unfortunate appearances arise from negative karma. For example, we can think of the example of the different views of a glass of water of various beings. So and the attachment being is called a preta, or a hungry ghost, and they, through attachment and grasping, they in the teachings of this kind of realm, they see the glass as of water as pus. They don't see water. A human being sees water as water, whereas a god or a very highly realised being sees it as pure nectar. So we might even see changes in perceptions ourselves. So some people don't particularly like water as a drink, but if it's a very, very hot day, they see it as really, really delicious. So we can see those kind of minds in ourselves. We may not enjoy cold water in the winter, But in the summer, we see it as something really special. We do see it as nectar. So our own minds have kind of got those shifts as well. So really our perception of all situations depends on the circumstances. In that case, it's the weather and also on our karma. So there are so many examples of this from the past, and we can look to our own lives for plenty of examples like this. A very enthralling one from the past is the story of Shantideva. He practiced attaining in secret, so he did a lot of practice in secret, attaining great realizations and becoming a very renowned practitioner and one of the wisest monks in his monastery of the day, and in fact all time. So the other monks in his monastery, because he was quite busy with his studies, they saw him as being incredibly lazy and a good for nothing, hanging about in his room until one day he gave the most extraordinary teaching. And in fact, the story goes that he was able to levitate into his teaching podium that his detractors had deliberately raised too high to try and trick him. So that is a story of perception. So the perception of the monks was that he was extremely lazy. So we have to be quite careful about our perceptions before we know the full story. So the benefits of relying on a guru or his representative, in this case Geshe's book, are manifold, and they're explained in detail on page 117 of the Path, and please have a read if you're not familiar, and it is great to meditate on them too. So why is it important? So we can meditate by visualising our teacher or teachers in the sky, emanated from the heart of Guru Shakyamuni Buddha, and contemplate or meditate on the following benefits. So we'll just exemplify its importance by doing a short meditation here. We'll just do a very short meditation on this. So just have a nice straight back and focus for a second on our breathing. So the first of the needs for a teacher or his representative, in this case the Path, is to show us the path to enlightenment. So our devotion here is essential for our development and how quickly we reach enlightenment. So it's important to bring us closer to enlightenment. And secondly, the essence of the nectar graduated path by Geshe Sondru says, if you properly rely on your holy gurus, you will quickly be liberated from cyclic existence like a mother. Seeing her child receive help, all the victors will be delighted to the depths of their hearts. Therefore, relying on a guru delights Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Our teacher is their representative. This sounds remote and far-fetched. We can think of many highly realised great lamas and practitioners in a great monastery in India or Tibet. We can't be taught by all of them, but our teacher is the one who decided to come to Australia and teach. He is the representative. All of these people will be very happy if his teaching goes well. Thirdly, listening to the teachings gives us the tools to deal with situations. Helps us avoid dark or bad influences. Won't put ourselves in any place of danger. We'll choose our friends very carefully. Listening closely to the teacher as representative will lead us all to methods to reduce and stop our negative minds. We will easily cease all delusions and useless actions. The path is multi-layered and there is a lot to learn. But if we follow it carefully, this new way of seeing the world will become clear. We will not lack a teacher in future lives. As we quickly purify our negative karma in a very short time, we will potentially experience mild suffering now and potentially create the basis for positive rebirths near our teacher. We will effortlessly achieve all temporary and ultimate aims. We can serve our teacher and repay the kindness in so many ways, recognising and praising the qualities. The most important is practising as is instructed, except if it doesn't conform, and then we ignore it. Another great way to gather energy on our spiritual journey is to think about ways to repay the kindness of the teacher, especially if our lives have turned around in any way, or we have found a new direction. How would this be possible without the kindness of the teacher? For most of us here, we're talking about a person who spent 50 years studying to pass and excel in very difficult exams, who travelled to a foreign country in his mid-50s with $10 in his pocket and no English to help explain the Dharma in a place that was not found, left all his friends, his own culture and family behind, nurtured all of us students, began writing books and building temples in his mid to late 60s, and left this extraordinary legacy of teachings, program, environment, and so much more. So now we're going to do what is known as the rainbow meditation. So we begin the rainbow meditation by visualizing a drop at the crown of the head. Just a tiny little drop right on the top of your head at the crown. It is very colourful and very peaceful. Transforms the crown into rainbow coloured light. So now your whole head is light-natured, the colours of the rainbow. Visualize this coloured drop of light moves down from our crown to our throat. The light emanates from the area of the throat to rainbow light. Our neck and our shoulders are now also rainbow light. This beautiful coloured drop of light then moves down from our throat to our heart area. Transforms the heart area into radiant rainbow light. Of our body around the heart area is now this beautiful rainbow coloured light. The drop now moves down to our navel. Light rays emanate and transform this whole area, our back and our torso and our ribs and so forth, into radiant rainbow light. Beautiful. Rainbow drop of light then moves down from the navel to the base of the spine. The rest of our body, our legs and our feet, thighs and so forth, and all the area near the base of the spine are beautiful, radiant rainbow light. Our whole body is now radiant rainbow light. From the top of our head to the tip of our toes. Clear and bright, light without any heaviness. The light also transforms our mind. which is calm and peaceful in aspect. Now we visualize that light emanates from our body in all directions. The light extends out from our body and transforms the room you are in, so that it also becomes pure, peaceful rainbow light. Then the whole building that we're in becomes rainbow light. The rainbow light extends out further and further. And the gardens, in the street, the buildings, all the people in the streets, and the animals and the insects are all beautiful, extraordinary rainbow light. Peaceful. Rainbow light is stronger and stronger, emanating out from our body, beyond our street, encompassing our whole suburb, and then the suburb next door, then the whole city, then the whole state. Everything touched by this wonderful, exceptional, beautiful rainbow light. All of Australia is now touched by rainbow light, and it continues beyond the shores, across the oceans, touching all other countries. Bringing lightness and joy and peace and health and happiness, touching every single country of the world, till the whole of the planet Earth is completely bathed in rainbow light. We meditate on this beautiful visualization. We focus on it single-pointedly. Touching billions and billions of people, billions and billions of animals and insects and birds and fish, touching all of their environments, bringing good health, bringing great happiness, bringing joy and love and peace. The whole world filled with the rainbow light. And then step by step, the whole earth and all the countries and all the people dissolve back in their light-natured form into our own rainbow body. Then we can just see our own rainbow body, our own light-nature body. And then we visualize that this beautiful rainbow body collects from our feet upwards, step by step, all of it dissolving into the rainbow-coloured drop of light at our crown. All that is left is a small rainbow-coloured drop of light, very beautiful, very radiant, very peaceful. Visualize that the small rainbow drop of light becomes smaller and smaller, and finally dissolves into space. We meditate on this feeling of spaciousness, this lightness, this energy. Whatever feeling of peace and calm we have generated, may it continue until at least the end of the day. And a feeling for everyone we meet, every situation we encounter, a sense of lightness and energy and peace. Then, in recognition of the effort of this meditation and this class, we can dedicate the positive energy we have created towards more happiness in our lives, more good conditions, better health and also happiness and good conditions for the people that we love and for all living beings. We also dedicate it to the well-being and future lives for John Cook, for John Cook's family and Rosie McHugh's family, and also to the many millions who have suffered through the COVID pandemic, and especially those countries that are experiencing terrible situations right now, such as India and Brazil and others. Do the dedication prayers begin on page 31. So the final prayer of the graduated path. By the two collections vast as space, amassed with effort for a long time, may I become a chief of conquerors, a guide for all beings whose mind's eye is blinded by ignorance. Also in all lives while not yet come to that, may Manjushri favour me with his compassion, finding the supreme path, complete with all stages of the teachings. May I please the conquerors by practising well, by my precise understanding of the essential points of the path, with skillful means drawn along by strong compassion, and by dispelling the mental darkness of beings, I uphold the conqueror's teaching for a long time. Where the supreme precious teaching has not spread, also where it has spread but become degenerate, with a mind deeply moved by great compassion, may I make clear this treasure of benefit and bliss, the stages of the path excellently established by the marvellous deeds of the conquerors and their sons, Give glory to the minds of those aspiring for liberation. May the conqueror's deeds be long preserved. May all humans and non-humans who remove the obstructions and establish conditions favourable to cultivating the excellent path never be parted for all of their lifetimes from the purest of paths which the Buddhas have praised. When someone makes effort to practice properly the 10 points of conduct of the Supreme Vehicle, may he always be assisted by the mighty protectors, and may oceans of good fortune spread out reaching all. Then the final general dedication prayers. Kyawade Chebon Zonam Yeji Zozojin Zonam Yeji Leyongwe Dambakuri Topajo. By this virtue may all beings complete the collections of wisdom and merit, and attain the two holy bodies arisen from wisdom and merit. Changyuzem Jorin Moshe Mati Pana Chigati Chipanyamba Mepai Gore Gondu Pelbajo. May the precious superior mind of enlightenment be generated in those who have not yet generated it, and not decrease in those who have developed it, but increase continuously. So thank you first of all to Manakam, who has been incredible in terms of supporting our teaching program since the commencement of COVID. He's been to every single session that's been online, so we're all very grateful. Thank you, Manakam. Thanks everyone for your patience, and especially if I've made any mistakes, so thank you for the last few weeks. Pam says, and I'll read her wording, what she's going to be covering is over the next 6 sessions with Geshe's precious text as our guide. Let's take the first steps on our Buddhist journey, the path to enlightenment. As we head off, the question is, who can we take with us to support us on this path? What will encourage us if we become downhearted? Who will guide us if we lose our way? In this course, we'll get to know our 4 friends to invite on our Buddhist journey, friends that can provide inspiration, wise advice and good company. Let me introduce you to them now. Our first friend is found in the teachings in Guru Yoga. We'll continue Anna's teachings of that part. Then we'll meet the other 3 reliable companions, meditation, the how-tos and the insights that meditation can bring, the awe and wonder of the leisure and fortune teachings, the inspiration and teachings on death and impermanence. What better friends could we have for this marvellous journey? Everyone is welcome to join Pam. So thank you everyone, and if you have time, a cup of tea will be ready.